While Mahmoud Khalil, the Syrian, Algerian, Palestinian, Mexican, I don't know what other nationalities supposedly has, is awaiting his appeal and hopefully his soon to follow deportation. One of his co-rioters, co-organizers of the campus intifada in Colombia last year was arrested yesterday while in an interview for his U.S. citizenship. Yeah, that Mushin something or other who gives a crap was arrested and is now facing deportation. He thought he was about to become a U.S. citizen, but it turns out that maybe the U.S. isn't too thrilled about giving citizenship to people who support terrorism and want to take down the West and replace it with an Islamic caliphate. Welcome to the Daily Objective. I'm Razi Ginsburg. I'm joined by James Valiant. James, we're going to hear from this guy a little bit. Not live. We can't get an interview, but we're going to hear some of 60 Minutes could get an interview last
It's
year. We're going to hear some of that soon. No spoilers, James. I want people hearing this for the first time from the man himself.
well,
Uh,
then let's hear from
so
him. You know, he's
excited.
been in the country for 10 years. He was born in the West Bank. He attended university here, and he was in the process of trying to up his green card to citizenship. And he went in Vermont to his, the interview they do prior to granting citizenship, and he was busted and taken into custody, and they plan to deport him.
All right. Whether or not he is the victim, as I guess we're supposed to think everybody is, except the Jews who are slaughtered by the people that these people are riding in favor of. Let's listen to his own words a little bit. Mostly the important part from the 60 Minutes interview. Daniel, if you can play that for us, and we will listen.
What was your initial reaction when you heard about the Hamas attack on October 7th?
I could not believe what my eyes were seeing, where I see Hamas members getting into settlements and so on. But also the first moment I saw that, I put my hand on my heart. And I started praying, knowing that there will be a huge level of revenge from the Israelis.
Okay.
And I was
That's all we
praying.
need to know about this piece of shit. Yeah. First of all, notice he says settlements. Remember, the places that Hamas invaded on October 7th were Sderot, the city, and a bunch of kibbutzim, these socialist communes that were built there in part because the people who built them live in this delusion of there's peace and there's a partner for peace on the other side. And the only reason we don't have peace is because evil right-wingers in Israel won't allow us to have peace. Uh, the attack on October 7th was an attack on the Israeli peace movement. And when he refers as settlements to these places, he is telling you that. He is telling you our war is not about having a two-state solution. It's not about resistance to an occupation. It's not about breaking free from an open-air prison. It's about fixing the Nakba, basically, what happened in 1948, which is the creation of a Jewish state. Our problem is that Jews live where we don't want them to live. I mean, I don't think they want Jews to live anywhere, but specifically their war is against the Jewish state of Israel, where it currently is, which is not something they want. But the use of the word settlements is not even the most despicable part of those few seconds. The first thing he thought, again, we presumably all were watching those videos coming in through social media, in part wondering if this is real, if what we're watching is real. Seeing dead bodies across, on the sides of streets, seeing a family being held, a live stream of a family being held hostage in their own home, live streamed on the mother's own Facebook moments after the 18-year-old daughter was murdered. Seeing them uh, commit the slaughter they committed at a music festival. And seeing all of this, this person thought, I was so terrified about the people doing this suffering the consequences. This is the person that the U.S. is about to deport James.
Yeah, his word revenge is the key word here. He wouldn't think that an attack on innocent civilians within long recognized Israeli territory was somehow an act of aggression. You point out how horrific it was. He doesn't mention any of the horrors, any of the rapes or mutilations or the killing of babies. He doesn't mention anything like that. It was a peace concert that was attacked. And this is long recognized Israeli territory we're talking about. The term settlement, that's the key word, but then the term revenge obviously would stimulate a reasonable act of self-defense, which could have annihilated, in my view, Gaza immediately, but which did not. So you can tell what this individual's position is on things by looking at it that way. It would be pure revenge on Israel's part to act in any self-defensive way on an unprovoked attack on innocent civilians, women and children being raped and mutilated and burnt alive, killed, taken hostage. That didn't cause him any upset. His only source of upset was what the revenge Israel would take. Revenge, as if Israel just has to take it. No, this guy, by the way, was staging back in November of 2023 die-ins. They were chanting. His group was chanting "From the river to the sea." They were trespassing in violation of Columbia rules, lying on steps, doing a die-in. No, it wasn't a die-in to show solidarity with the innocent civilians who were slaughtered and mutilated on October 7th. No, 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 no. It was a die-in because they were objecting to Israeli genocide in early November. So, no, this guy, under existing U.S. immigration law, is easily deportable. I know that it is a rarely used thing where the Secretary of State says your mere presence here is inconsistent with U.S. foreign policy, but it clearly comes within the meaning of that. Whatever you think of existing U.S. law, I grant you U.S. immigration law may be subject to criticism, but existing U.S. immigration law permits the Secretary of State to have this individual, I'll try and be neutral on that, this dirtbag, I have to say it, to be deported, and to be deported back to the West Bank, where no doubt he will join the Intifada cause there. So no, this guy is a dirtbag. CBS gave him a voice back, my God. So, that's typical of Western media, though. The way they do these one-sided interviews, the way they do these one-sided reports. No, this dirtbag should be deported under existing U.S. immigration law. He can easily be deported, and good riddance.
You're really not holding back, dirtbag. I mean, that's not
Well,
the first word that comes to my mind, but or the second word, which I think is the one I used, because the first word, we'll leave
yes.
behind the paywall. Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Thank you. Wait, there was a comment here that I wanted to read, and hopefully I will find it. I can't, so I will look for it later. Yeah, the CBS interviewer. A few days ago we were talking about the Douglas Murray debate with Dave Smith on Joe Rogan, and Douglas Murray starts, with criticizing Joe Rogan, but he does, when he compliments him, he says, and I pointed this out in one of the shows we did about it, he says, "You ask the questions." And I said, it's a good thing he didn't say you ask the tough questions, because, Joe Rogan just asks the questions. Well done, CBS, for asking the questions. I mean, the guy is telling you, I saw Jews slaughtered in places where, they kind of deserved it because they shouldn't be there. And the first thing I thought was, oh no, what are these Jews going to do to us?
That's basically what he said. That's basically what he said. This is original Israeli recognized territory, and he calls these settlements as if these settlements were, something illegal, unlawful, immoral. Well, that's absolutely insane. It doesn't even have the complexities of settlements in the West Bank. This was within Israel proper, long recognized borders, and he doesn't mention, as I say, the horrors of October 7th. To him, the concern is how Israel will react with revenge. No, this guy is an advocate of Palestinian violence. This guy was chanting on the Quad of Columbia. He was chanting his group from the river to the sea. His group was doing a die-in support of Palestinians about a month after October 7th, when Israel had barely done anything. So he was calling it genocide. He was, demanding that Columbia and U.S. universities divest from Israel. No, this guy's presence in America is inconsistent with U.S. foreign policy, at least U.S. foreign policy under Mr. Trump. So kick
Should
his
it be
butt
though?
out.
That's another question. Do you think like in an objective legal system, you're doing the course on the Constitution for Ayn Rand Center UK members at the highest levels, and I think it's probably the only and definitely the best course on the Constitution from an objectivist perspective. And it does cover the Constitution as it is, but the Constitution as it should be would probably be have some changes. Would this be legal? Would this be constitutional in an ideal system?
Yes, if America followed the correct policy, America should declare itself hostile. I mean, we've identified officially Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis as terrorist organizations. In other words, these are organizations with which America is technically in a state of hostility with. When you have someone like that, and America is engaged in, say, a real war. Now, I wish America would recognize officially and legally our 45 plus year war with the Islamic Republic of Iran, because all of these entities are proxies of a nation that America should officially recognize that it is at war with. Under those circumstances, it would be very easy, just as easy as it would be to remove a Nazi propagandist during World War II. So even in my ideal world, even if I could rewrite the Constitution and make it utterly perfect, and and to add to that, if in my ideal world, America would fully recognize when it's at a state of war, then this is a no-brainer. This guy can be booted from the country because he is in effect, the equivalent of a Nazi propagandist during World War II.
Yeah, the comment I wanted to read earlier and couldn't find was Deborah saying, if Israel were really intent on revenge, they wouldn't warn the hostiles before striking. First of all, revenge is legitimate, but that's not the goal, or should be the goal of this war. And Israel shouldn't warn the hostiles because it's stupid, and it ends up with destroyed buildings that propagandists can say, oh look, Gaza has been leveled, but you have the IDF operating somewhere, there's no Hamas there. The IDF leaves, Hamas comes back, to rubble, but are still there and are still active. So it's a terrible policy. But no, what he really is saying is, I saw this, I realized, this was successful, but not successful enough to finish the job. And I worried that Israel would win the war that we started. That is what that is. And
He put his hand
now
over his heart. We were fearing for his Palestinian brethren what would come. And yet Israel, what did they do? And mind you, he was doing this back in November of 2023,
yeah.
when really very little had yet been done. I mean, it was beginning to start, but very little had been done. And he was then concerned, and then going out and chanting from the river to the sea, calling for, the campus intifada and so forth. No. This is no moral case can be made for this man remaining in America. No legal case under existing law, and even as an objectivist, in my ideal legal world, this individual would be easily deportable, if not worse.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a question, by the way, to be asked. Like, why were these people? And we did ask. We covered the campus intifada. I think twice a day, almost every day for a couple of weeks. And we did ask the question, why are they not being arrested? And in some places they were arrested, leading, among other things, to some of our favorite and most often showed videos on this
That is
channel.
a direct threat to Jews in America. That is a direct threat, frankly, to Americans in America when you're out there chanting for violence, when you're chanting in support of a vicious attack like October 7th. But more than that, you're chanting for new violence against Israel. That is a threat to both Americans and specifically Jewish Americans, but also our entire relationship with Israel. Obviously, this man should be deportable. I mean, it's a no-brainer in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, globalize the intifada does mean the stuff that Palestinians do specifically in killing Jews, let's make that a thing everywhere. That is exactly what intifada doesn't mean protesting legitimately. It doesn't even mean taking over a lawn in a university that you're not supposed to, or breaking into a building. it does mean killing Jews. That's what intifada is, and that's
Slaughtering innocent civilians on buses, throwing rocks and bombs, and slaughtering people who are just civilians. That's what I've lived through the last if you've lived for the last 4 decades, you know what intifada means: violence directed at Jews wherever they are. It's
yeah.
that simple.
Now, some of the stories he tells, you can find his 60 Minutes interview. We're not going to subject you to any more on this show, but one of the things he says is he tells the story of how when he was 10 years old, he saw his friend shot in the chest to death right in front of him by an IDF soldier. Now, stuff like that has happened. I would guess that he's lying and he just knows that stuff like this happened, and to make himself look important, he claims to have been there because it's happened rarely. But the times it did happen was when Israel, just a little history lesson, 2003, there were terrorist attacks, was the second intifada. The terrorist attacks at some point got to a point where March 2003, there were almost every single day there was a suicide bombing somewhere. And at the end of that, Israel decided to go on Operation Protective Shield, which was a military operation in Judea and Samaria and the West Bank. Israel did that and then started building the barrier that was referred to as a wall by people who didn't like Israel, as a fence by people who did. It was part fence, part wall. You don't remember that? By the way, there's a
Israeli civilians were being slaughtered both in the West Bank and in Israel proper. Don't they remember?
yeah,
Of
but
course, this wall is to protect Israel. I mean, Israel can't do anything in its own. Well, the expression from my face, Israel then can't do anything in self-defense when
yeah,
their
but
civilians are being slaughtered.
yeah, so back at that time, these started like there were these weekly protests that I think maybe continue to this day. I'm not sure. In specific areas, we had a show about that family, the Tamimi family, that is very active in organizing these protests. Pro-Hamas people, anti-Israel people from the West who go to join the fight. This is something they often join. By the way, a small point about the wall versus fence thing in the 2004 Democratic presidential debate. There was a question, is it a wall or is it a fence? And different people answered different things. And I think it was Howard Dean who said, if Israel builds the thing on their land, it's a fence. If it's on Palestinian land, it's a wall. Which is, even then, I thought, do you understand like reality? Do you understand definitions? That's not how it goes. Even if it's not a legitimate barrier, it's either a fence or a wall
It's
or
a conceptual breakdown. Words no longer have the same meaning. It depends on our political perspective what a barrier is. No. It's the same kind of anti-conceptual corruption that
yeah.
we're unfortunately used to. Yeah.
But these demonstrations are not peaceful. They're not even Colombia riots level peaceful. These are attacks on soldiers, and so often you see like Ahed Tamimi, the girl who became a celebrity from this family because as a 15-year-old she got in the face of an IDF soldier and it was filmed. The soldier is standing there doing nothing. Now he's armed. He could shoot her, as we hear Jews like to do. And she would never get in his face if she thought there was a risk. Sometimes the protesters got too violent, and yes, they would bring their kids there. So sometimes the IDF would shoot back. I think it's usually rubber bullets, which are also not comfortable to get shot by, as I've heard. But yeah, shit
Oh,
happened.
the
But you
IDF,
know how the story ends up being. Sorry?
if they're
Continue.
threatening IDF, they should use real bullets, not rubber bullets. And I don't care I mean, they're the ones bringing their kids to a riot. I mean, whether it's as simple as throwing rocks or blowing up a bus, I don't care. It's violence. It's violence that needs to be responded to. It's an act of war. Um, that's the way it should be treated. And until the West can stand up and treat these things as that sort of thing, I fear that it will just keep going on and on and on. There are still hostages, folks. Hamas is still operating in Gaza. Rather than be wiped out as they should have been, Hamas should have been wiped out months ago. And instead of that, what do we get? I mean, we get this guy putting his hand over it. I fear for the revenge against my people, meaning Israel warns people before they bomb a building and so forth. And so they still are operative. They're still active. And so that's what this guy is fearing? No, it's insane.
Yeah, and again, the story gets told the way he chooses to tell it, and 60 Minutes, is asking the questions or not. They're just sitting there and letting him tell the story. What were the circumstances? Were the Jews walking around, with their gun, thinking, oh no, this person is like 18, he doesn't deserve to be shot. Oh, like there's a 10-year-old. I mean, it could be anything if you just take him at his word. No, this was an attack on soldiers, almost guaranteed.
I mean, he says he saw it from Israel. He says he was the age of this person. Like you say, I don't give this guy, a centimeter of credibility. Obviously, that he's not to be believed. But even if he had a friend, a young person who died at that time, I don't know where it came from, and I don't know the circumstances of it. We're just given this violin story so that it could elicits tears to the American audience listening to CBS's 60 Minutes. It's absurd. It was absurd for 60 Minutes to give this guy a platform at all, much less dwell on his stories of the suffering of Palestinians. That is just bizarre in the wake of what we know has happened over the last 60 years in Israel. It's just insane.
Yeah. Tai Tai says they take kids out of school to throw rocks at the IDF. Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing with these riots. They were attacking the IDF, and if this is still going on, they're doing it on a weekly basis on Fridays. I'm sure there's information out there if you want to join these protests. And yeah, if you take your 10-year-old, you are again intentionally putting them at harm's risk. Look, we've said this before.
Want their own children to die,
Yeah.
so that they get a headline out of it. That's their strategy. And you can hear from this guy that's what their strategy is when he says it, when he tells you the sob story. I mean, that's what it's all about. It's the same strategy by which they're killing their own children in this evil cause. I mean, true evil, hatred of the good for being the good, is expressed every time this happens. That you can't kill your own children, put your own children at risk, and have any kind of life-oriented values. It's true evil. It's true evil. And that's what he's doing. He's using children here in a verbal propagandistic way, but his Palestinian buddies back in Gaza and the West Bank, they actually kill their own children. And so when he complains about this young person being shot, well, that's what you guys wanted. I mean, if it was a decent, I wouldn't give the guy an interview, but if there was a decent interview, I'd say, well, that's what you want, right? You guys are aiming to have as many children killed as possible. So why are you complaining? Isn't this your goal? That's why you use schools and hospitals. That's why you send children out to throw rocks.
I have a feeling if you invited him for an interview, he wouldn't take it knowing you would ask those questions. 60 Minutes, just asks the questions, not the tough ones. So it's easier to go on that show. Hannah says Tamimi's parents look totally different. Yes, Palestinians are mixed, but yeah, in reference to her looking white. And of course, we all know Jews are white and white supremacists as well, and all that crap. So yeah, it's always interesting the mental gymnastics that the pro-Hamas side does sometimes when even looking at a picture and telling themselves a story, and they use pictures as arguments, but the pictures don't even match the arguments. And of course,
they're the racists, they're the genocidal ones, they're the ones who, and the funny thing is everything they do, Freud would have called it projection, right? But everything they do, they accuse Israel of doing, even as Israel is doing the most surgical, gingerly war that has ever been conducted in world history. So it is upside down, inside out, bizarre. I think fans of Superman will know what I mean when I say this is bizarro world where everything is upside down, where the racist, genocidal, explicit goal is racist genocide, and and people give them the time of day when they accuse Israel of that. Crazy.
Yeah, by the way, people who are not fans of Superman but fans of Seinfeld will also know that reference. And I was thinking this Moshen guy definitely looks like the kind of guy who, changes the label on his jeans from a 32 to a 31. But Anyway, okay, there was something else. Oh, I wanted to remind people, look, when you hear from these people, listen closely and especially listen closely when they tell you it didn't start on October 7th, it started in 1948. 1948 is the creation of the State of Israel and the supposed displacement of really for fully, peaceful Arabs who just wanted to live in peace and security, but the Jews, the white supremacist Jews came and kicked them out. Tomorrow, we have our very special Debunking the Nakba episode. You should watch it and you should make sure that others watch it. And the way to do that is by sharing it, liking, subscribe, all the regular stuff. But you can help if you go over there whenever you watch this and this show is over. Go over, it is scheduled, give it a preemptive like. The algorithm will know that people want to see the Nakba debunked or want to get pissed off because somebody says the Nakba can be debunked. Either way, it's good for all of humanity.
It is critical that we get this straight. We complain all the time about, in this case, CBS 60 Minutes, but we complain all the time about British and American media and the way they cover this story. They have accepted revisionist fantasy when it comes to the creation of Israel. Absolutely. So you got to check this out, people. If you have any questions, any doubts about the legitimacy of Israel and the violence that they faced before, during, and after their creation, please check this out tomorrow.
We told you, by the way, somebody here asks about do we know? I can't find this. Somebody said something like, "Do we know about the BBC doing a documentary by the son of Hamas? Not the good son of Hamas, like an actual son of a Hamas leader now, showing how poor Palestinians are suffering." And yes, we covered that on episodes of this show when that came out. We also cover the BBC very regularly, including yesterday. So yeah, if you are new to the channel, make sure you check out some of our older stuff and make sure you check out the reality show which follows this show. And today we're going to talk about how people like Mahmoud Khalil and Moshe and what's his face have nothing to worry about in the UK, because while Hamas is currently designated a terrorist organization, it has a lot of support that nobody does anything about, and also it has a law firm, Riverway Law, fighting to make it legalize Hamas, make it a no longer designated terrorist organization. That is the topic of today's episode of the reality show. Yes, James, that facial expression is the correct answer to
Insanity to me. The monsters that pulled off. I mean, we're still recent in our minds are the atrocities of what should be in our minds the atrocities of October 7th, and in the wake of that, to reward Hamas. Talk about another case of clear insanity. This is cognitive breakdown, ladies and gentlemen. This is evasion of basic facts of reality in support of twisted, sick committers of some of the worst atrocities in my lifetime. So, yeah, God, this is an evil law firm.
Yeah, and while ARCUK does sell advertising on our shows, sometimes we have shows that are sponsored by a company or somebody with a product or service that they want to sell. Riverway Law gets free advertising. We will once again let you know what their phone number is, what their email address is, what their snail mail address is, in case you want to better understand why it is that you should be totally okay with the people who are behind October 7th.
Lawyers, no death threats, but do drop them a line if you think they're doing something really evil and monstrous, which they are.
Yeah, I mean, the email I remember off the top of my head, it's info@riverwaylaw.com. And yeah, there's a good reason to ask for info. So yes, absolutely. Do not behave like a Palestinian when approaching them, but yeah, just ask the questions. Thank you, James Valiant. Thanks everybody for watching. The reality show starts in a couple of minutes.
Be safe.